All right, joined now by Brandon McCarthy, the sporting director of Phoenix Rising, also an owner as well. He has some shares in the club. Ryan Score, Kevin Cardez. Brandon, we'll start with something with you. Professional baseball player, athlete your entire life. You retire and you get into soccer. What was the gravitation to this sport specifically for you?
There was one singular moment. It was Steven Gerrard's goal against Olympiacos in 2004 in the Champions League that I just happened to see. And as he ran over and celebrated with the cop, I went, whatever this was, I want to watch more of this. And that was my first moment. I followed Liverpool that year. They win Champions League in a ridiculous way. And it's like, if this is what soccer is, I have to follow more of this. I had probably stopped playing when I was 13 or 14, so I'd been out of the game for 7 years,
But
7
you
years.
did play.
I played, but I wasn't at like a high standard, and I kind of stopped right before I had to make a decision of if I'm going to play at a higher level or what I'm going to do. And that was also when I went through puberty and a really awkward period running, so I was terrible at running, and this is a sport that's based on running. But Liverpool was my introduction in those moments, and then it became just an obsession where I consumed almost more soccer than baseball for a long period. It was my respite from baseball, and it was just a complete passion. And when ultimately, when Burke put together the group to come purchase Arizona United, someone reached out to me, and it was like, okay, I think this could be a fun thing for me to be involved with, just because it's local, it's my passion, and then it's just sort of steadily grown from there.
So for you, you've lived the dream, right? 10-WAR pitcher, you've been all around the block. He's laughing. This is the 2011 FIP leader for the A's. Like this is the GOAT. You've lived your dream. And so I'm a Giants fan, right? And when Buster Posey signed Willy Adames this offseason, he said that it just felt different to negotiate at the table with someone who had played before. Obviously not a professional soccer player, but now on the other side as the sporting director for a soccer club. What has that dynamic been as a former professional player at the pinnacle of your sport, talking to guys who are trying to get to the pinnacle themselves?
It's definitely different, and there was a learning curve of what do people want when they're here. This level, this dynamic doesn't exist in baseball, and I had to get familiar with that, because once you're in baseball, you're in the system, right? You're part of a club, and so they just move you through based on what they want. These guys have to chart their own path, pick their direction, which is something that I wasn't used to that dynamic. And I see the flaws inherent in that dynamic, as you see people make really poor choices for themselves in their own career. Then you see some handle it perfectly, and then you realize the club has some culpability in that, where they have to help these guys move to the next level. That's where a lot of education has been for me, is just understanding all the dynamics of kind of how the world moves, how do players move, how do teams view it. It's been a ton of fun for me to learn all that, but it's definitely been a little bit different. But when it gets down to negotiation, when it gets down to understanding agents and what players need, that's all the exact same. None of that changes.
So then stepping back to last year, right, you talk about being able to pick your own course and chart your own path. Popmar Boy comes here, and he had an opportunity to likely be the first overall pick in the MLS Super Draft. He had an offer to sign the MLS Generation Adidas contract, and instead he comes here. What went into having him make that decision and become a Phoenix Rising player and helping him chart his own path, overriding the MLS and coming down to the USL Championship?
We just genuinely believe this is a better step for players like that. And that's not to slight against MLS. It's a slight maybe against MLS Next Pro. We think for a player like that who's just going to, we just watched for a year dominate college kids, if he goes and plays younger kids in that setup, we felt like playing here against men who are fighting for a job every day in front of full stadiums, that was what he needed for that next level of his development. And we still believe this with our academy kids and other academy kids around the world. It's just, we think USL is primed to help develop players as a good first step in a way that maybe Next Pro isn't, or after Next Pro, it's another good step for them. So that was how we pitched it to Pop and his representatives, and I think that's held true. Like, I think he had a fantastic year last year, and then I think this year is another good year for development, and then you kind of hope Pop is off and dominating somewhere else in the world.
So what's the key piece in that pitch then? Obviously, it is the development, and you're telling a 19-year-old, hey, this is about your future, and we think we are better for your future, but how do you convey that beyond just competing with adults? And it's similar maybe to how it could be in another part of the world, and it's different from MLS. It's going to be better for you. What's the key thing in the differences that you can pitch there?
The key is the minutes you can receive, and then the training environment. I mean, our training environment out there right now is unbelievably intense. Everything is on fire every day, and if you create that, we have more of that this year than we had last year, but you still have a professional environment every day that the standards are high. and you're playing against
Adults.
You're playing against adults and men. In English, they call it against hairy asses. Like, you just want people who are just there fighting for everything. They're going to go into a tackle on you. They're going to push you. They don't care that you're bigger, stronger than them. They're still going to fight you for it because it's how they eat. We think that's the essential step for people to develop to get ready for another level. And we just thought that Pa was uniquely suited at that point where he could come in and hopefully on day one he would show his quality and he was ready to go. And ultimately he did that fantastically.
So then on the flip side of that, jumping forward a little bit, this year you guys went through and just plundered MLS Next Pro. You guys go to North Texas and you take a ton of their guys out. You drop down to USL League One, and that's still grown men. There's still grown men playing down in USL League One. What's the difference in your approach in pulling players up from Next Pro as opposed to USL League One?
I don't know that we have it was more just the players that we were familiar with, or certainly that Pa was familiar with. Obviously, we have a strong North Texas representation here, and any manager that comes in will have his portfolio of guys that he goes, hey, here are the guys that I know, I trust. They can walk in the building. I know they can do a job. There's a huge safety element of that to a manager, but also these guys are coming out of Next Pro. They're ready for that next step, or they were ready a year or two ago, which is one of the things that we've identified with Next Pro is there's guys that stay there for a year or two too long. Casey Walls, who we announced today, is very much in that group where you've watched him and he's been stagnant for a couple of years. Carl Sainty, guys who are just too good for that level, and you don't see them making that jump forward where Pa is looking to go, no, they need something else. They have to come here. It's another step forward, and then hopefully on from there. But we would see the same in League One. We would see the same in Next Pro. We honestly just didn't have enough of a scouting operation to have full eyes on all of that, which I think as we go forward, we should be better in that. But Pa coming in and going, no, I know this level well. I know these guys. Let's go after these guys.
And that visual that he can provide, that Coach Ka can provide of saying, hey, whatever you see on your screens, I can tell you I saw it in person. He's above the level. He can make the step.
Noble is a great example of that. Noble, we watched him last year in Atlanta, and everybody that we had in the scouting process just went, you didn't really see it. And then we kind of peeled away layers, and you watched the team that he was in. It was kind of a low motivation team. They weren't playing great football. And Pa was like, no, trust me, I know this kid. I've seen his work ethic. I know what he can be. He just hasn't been taught these pieces. If you can bring him into our environment, we give him that. And now he's standing out every single day in training. He looks nothing like the player we scouted. And it's really informative for all of us to look deeper into scouting and what are the pieces that you can pull away, but also realizing, same with Casey. Like, there's just guys there that had gotten stagnant. They need that next step.
Is it kind of like, and you can feel free to tell me if I'm wrong, is it kind of like Carlos a couple years ago, bringing Carlos Harvey in, a player who had played at a level that you could very clearly tell he was above, but he could not escape it because he was somewhere in between Next Pro level and MLS level, so you bring him into the USL Championship.
100%. I mean, Carlos was very much of that, and he was kind of, we targeted him specifically as, I think we were the first club to buy someone from an MLS club. We wanted to do that as a big step, but also there's a whole lot of guys in this middle band or the lower band of MLS who just aren't making that step forward. Right? It's just, I don't think it's enough of a developmental league. It's becoming much more of a results-based league. And so you just have these players that fall out, and then Next Pro, they're way too good for that. So where do they fit? And I think that's where USL is uniquely positioned to. We can catch those, develop them, and go. Nick Markanek, stories all over the league of these guys who they're falling out. No. We can build them up. And as long as we're developmental and not trying to chase the MLS model, players should move on from us quickly.
You're above Next Pro. You're not quite to the MLS level, and you're going to get better playing with men than sitting your butt on the bench in Major League Soccer at that point, right?
100%. And just the training environment. You have to come in and fight every single day. And if they're having you train, if you can train with the first team in MLS and you're getting that environment, it's great. But you do still need 90 minutes at the weekend. You need 2,000, 3,000 minutes over the year. We give you that. That's the standard you can get here.
So then do you feel like the proof of concept was sort of there with Tomas Angel? He came over on loan from LAFC, felt like, and he even said he didn't feel like he had the year that he wanted to here, but then just a few nights ago has a fantastic assist for San Diego. It was such a weird dynamic, but in the end of it, it looked like it might have worked out for him.
I hope so. I mean, we had tracked Tomas going back to when he was in Colombia, and we always liked the player, and obviously he made the right move for himself getting to LAFC, but again, went there and he just wasn't getting what he needed. And then they bring in Olivier Giroud and you realize, okay, we have a needed striker. We need to push forward. And it probably didn't work out as well as any of us would have wanted to, but you still saw his class. You could still see what he could do. Talking to San Diego FC when we were there, they were really high on him. He had really performed well there. And now he's got a new platform to really push himself forward to higher levels, which is which is great. Like, you want to play your role at this level of rehabilitating players, showing them some love, giving them minutes, and then see where they go off to in their journey.
The mid-season stuff, too. He was a mid-season acquisition, as was Gerrard, as was DJ. You had to do a lot of work last year in the middle of the year. You were very open about that when it happened. But that's been a thing that you don't see a lot around the league as much, at least outwardly. And since you started in this role last year, the year before, mid-season moves to kind of take a team to the next gear. Is that something you're actively thinking about when you're building a squad in the offseason?
It could just be the baseball background is like,
you got to go get
mid-season
somebody.
acquisitions. Like, what are you missing? Go find it. Like, we don't have to sit tight here on what you have. If there are pieces that will make a team better, we all get excited in September here at the end of the season of what are we going to do? What are the playoffs? Seeing us win a title on Panos, Formella, guys who came in and really pushed us forward in the playoffs that year, we can find those pieces. And so I want to stay active. And then we also knew going forward we were going to be a winger-based system. And so Gerrard and DJ were guys we wanted to go get, those types of players. And you want not just solving for the specific year you're in, but solving for the future.
But so it's not something that you're necessarily thinking about in, December, January when you're signing players. You're trying to, or is like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, are you thinking about August and September in December and January, or is it kind of just something you realize over the course of the year?
You realize you just have to really evaluate and know what you have in-house and then what's missing. Is there injuries? Is there something that's just not coming through? Is there something in the manager's game model that's not being solved by the players he has?
Sure.
You're trying to build a full roster in the winter, but similar to what we're seeing in MLS and why MLS is discussing going to the European calendar is we're always working against the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to sign players in the winter, if you want the better players, they're typically under contract, and then you have to pay to get them out. The winter is the most expensive window, whereas the summer, guys fall into they're free and it's easier to get players. You have a much larger selection to choose from because all of Europe becomes available to you. So that's really kind of, it's a little bit difficult to recruit through the winter. Your pool is just smaller, and so sometimes the summer there's just more opportunities there, but you just kind of have to play each market independently and figure out what you need, and if you don't need anybody, then great.
So have you looked into it more so this year, knowing that Gerrard is going to go play for Curacao, DJ is going to play for Granada, Damien just got called out for duty with Guatemala, Sante plays for Haiti, all these guys, and in the summer there are going to be holes. Did you plan with that in mind this year? Has it been more of a focal point knowing that there are going to be more absences in the summer, or is that just we'll get to it when we get to it?
It was a little bit of we just kind of decided like we'll get there when we get there. We know it's coming. And so you build some contingencies, and we have some other guys on the team that'll be wingers that nobody is thinking is going to be a winger right now. We'll start to see those pieces come through, but Hope can play out wide as well. Like, you'll go through a couple weeks in there where, yeah, you're missing some guys that you're really, really counting on. You just have to survive, and that's why you need 22, 25 men on the team just to get you through those periods. And it's opportunities for other guys to stand up and shine. And the coaching staff is not scared of any of it. They don't care. And so when we brought it up, it was, hey, we're going to lose for these 3-4 games. We're going to lose these guys. And they went, what do we care? We'll give someone else experience. Someone else can come in and perform. We get to platform those kids. And you go, fantastic. That's the attitude you want, is you don't have to be scared of getting elite talent on your team because they might leave you for a little while. Like, get them and then figure out how to make the team work.
Well, we talked to Coach, a month and a half ago?
Yeah.
And he said the same. That's the alignment that he's talking about. Now you're talking about the same thing of, hey, we're going to bring these guys in. They're going to go off for a little while, which is a good thing. Do we need to do more? And he's, no, we'll figure it out. We'll give somebody else a chance. Like, you've got Hope, you said, can play on the wing. Charlie played on the wing in Oakland. Emmy started as a winger a while back. You can play Darius out there. I'm sure that you can throw Remy out there because that's where he was in Next Pro.
Sacco
so you've got all the different options.
You've got guys that you will be able to figure it out. You'll have a little bit less depth. We've got even academy kids that are absolutely ready to step into those roles. So we have a lot of options. It's very easy to look at it from a fear-based perspective, and I think even going in the past, we might have looked at it that way. Paul's been this great breath of fresh air where he comes in and goes, I don't care if someone doesn't have experience. My job is to give them experience. I'll get them. If I get them ready, who cares? You go, okay, that makes everybody's job easier, but it also is a mind shift. Mind shift, yeah, for the building. You just go, okay, everybody's in play here. Everybody gets developed. Everybody comes through. It just makes it just takes puts an air in the building of positivity.
It's a glass half full, right? It's we will figure it out because we are smart enough to do so.
Yes, 100%.
I wanted to track back for a second before we get into the data behind all these players and how we really identify and evaluate those guys. You talked about finding the balance between being a rehabilitation league, and fostering talent and pushing them up and out. But from a fan base perspective, right, you still need guys to root for, right? The Potmar boy really resonated with the fan base last year, and you know that there's going to be bigger and better soccer out there for him at some point in his career. How do you balance being a rehabilitation and an uplifting league and also pushing players out to the fans that they can rally behind and be here for a little bit to be like Phoenix icons, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think that's hard, and you never know who fans will connect with. Sometimes you have guys that we've brought in, and you go, people are going to love this guy, and then you realize it just doesn't connect for whatever reason, and sometimes it's the other way, where they really connect with someone who, boy, I didn't see that one coming. So it's a little bit like almost putting out art where you have no idea how people accept it or take the players. So we've got, like, at least this year, I think it'll be much easier. It's just really bright, fun personalities who are really aggressive on the pitch, which that's what I think people will naturally follow, is good players who run a lot, who are aggressive, look like they're always trying to win the game for you. So I think that will be a great dynamic. But I look at this closer to college football than I do the NFL. Like, you're probably not going to have a guy for 5 or 6 years. You might have a few, but I think more often it's a little bit more transactional. You might see a guy for 1 to 2 years, and then you just kind of accept that they're going to move off to the next step of their career, and you have to get used to that dynamic. Harder to fall in love with players, but hopefully there's more players to follow in the future that you're in love with.
But in the same right, this is Potmar Boy's initial club at this point. Like, when he goes out wherever he goes, he'll be a Phoenix Rising man, and that makes it easier to follow. Like, wherever he goes, I know that I'll watch Potmar Boy knowing that he was a PRFC guy. Like, that's my guy, and maybe that plays into it. I know that Ryan wants to talk about the data behind.
No. This is good. Like, I think it's kind of similar to watching Kev move on to RSL, and now he's back in the league.
Sure.
But every time you see Kev on your TV screen, that's our guy. That's the all-time appearance leader. That's the
Junior
captain.
Flemings. We've got other guys that have gone off to other places, and you want to see them. Trejo leaving. You want to see your guys go off into those places. You want to see them leave this league, even leave MLS, and just get out in the world and see them survive and see them really do well. And it gives more people to attach to around the football world. And we want to do it with our own academy kids, where they're with us for a little bit, and then eventually we're watching them like, hey, remember this kid's in Italy now, and these kids are moving out and on, and you have a reason to follow them. They're not just kind of ending with you, I guess.
Well, and whether you want to say it outwardly or not, it's nice to see those players move on, because that means you're doing your job of saying, hey, we're going to bring a player in, and hopefully he's moved on to bigger and better things, because that means he was successful. And the more people that are successful here, the more likely we are to be successful.
This doesn't just go to players. This goes to coaches. This goes to people inside this building. We want people in ticket sales. We want everybody moving past our equipment manager. We want our team admin. We want all these people to achieve and just keep moving. We want this to be a foundational early step in people's careers and then move to the next. Like, we don't need this to be a trapped building, because this is a league that just kind of moves fast and it's figuring out itself out in the footing. Like, get yourself in here, and if you spend some time and do well and you really work at it, like, opportunities will emerge for you. So I know Bobby's big on it. I love the idea of it, of just let's let everybody come here and do the best work they can while they're here. And if another opportunity arises for them, then great. We'll find the next person, and we'll root for you the rest of your career.
Especially now. I mean, you've gotten to see the league change. It's so much more, not transactional, but it's way more quick, and everything moves a lot faster in the USL Championship of 2025 than the USL Championship of 2021.
100%. It keeps going. The standard is going up. It just goes up little by little, and sometimes you have bigger jumps, sometimes it's smaller, but it's keep moving forward. And you see one team, you see them, okay, they sell Winder, and then they sell another Winder, and you go, okay, we need to get some of those. We sell Carlos. No, we can bring people in from MLS. We can do things. Okay, kids from MLS Next Pro are leaving. Kids from MLS Academies are leaving. Yeah, that's who the USL should be attached to. Let's do this, and you bring them in, and you see other teams doing it. How do we get one? And then it slowly just starts to expand and snowball, and everybody kind of, it's not copycatting ideas, it's just going, hey, this is the way the league should be going, and then we all move together.
I mean, that worked for New Mexico and Las Vegas last year. They went out and got, especially New Mexico, they got a lot of Next Pro guys. It worked well for them, and if it works well for any team this year, you probably wouldn't be that surprised.
No, you really wouldn't. I mean, Rhode Island in the final last year, when you looked at us 2 years ago, we had built an entirely new team. Rhode Island built an entirely new team. You look at the amount of teams that are doing this, and Vegas getting close to the final.
Charleston 2 years ago.
Charleston, like, they just went, no, we'll take this thing down to the studs. We'll put this together. If we have the right hierarchy in place, the right coaches, we've got all the right, we're going to be successful. We will take this forward. It doesn't necessarily have to be these long-term projects, and there's different ways to do it. Louisville's been fantastic in their approach of a lot more guys that have been there for years with other guys coming and going. You just figure out what works best for your club, your situation, whatever you have, and then just and try to move forward with, like you said, with alignment going forward based on how your coaches and everybody else views things.
And so for you, where does the academy play into that? Obviously, Paul, when we talk to him, a big developmental coach wants to develop talent, wants to do it from the bottom. It starts with the academy here. Fans saw at the season ticket game Jamison Ping playing on that pitch, and a lot of academy kids getting time, Braxton getting time throughout the preseason. Where do you balance, and where does the academy fit into tearing it down to the studs, but also having guys who have been around?
It's been the biggest, brightest thing for me in this 6-7 weeks, whatever we've been going now, is seeing that shift. I mean, I can't describe. It's a 180-degree shift of where we've been, and our academy has just been, it's been there, but it hasn't been utilized in any real meaningful fashion. A lot of that is they come out and they train with us. You know, you have 5-6 guys, and they're more just filling out training numbers. And sometimes you have exercises where they're basically just running up and down the sidelines, doing offsides, and you just weren't getting much out of them, which I never faulted, because managers, you're in, like, I'm going to get fired. Like, I got to count on guys that I know are pros that have done this. It's hard to say, yeah, I can commit to a 16-year-old to play minutes, because if that costs you a game, does it cost you your job? That's a completely natural thing. Paul came in, we thought it'd be more of the same. We knew there was a lot more developmental-minded things to him. He even came in with some of our own academy kids in the interview process, and you went, okay, this might be different. We went out and watched, about a week before we started camp, we went out and watched a day of academy games, and Paul was joysticking players, and he's yelling up and down. The parents are going, who the hell is this guy? And he's completely involved, calls over the players after, talks to them. Hey, no slides anymore. We wear tennis shoes. We do, like, all of a sudden the standards became set, and it was, these are the 7 guys, whoever it is, that were going to come train with us every day, and then told them very clearly, here's what's expected of you, here are the standards. They come in the building. They're not academy kids anymore. They are absolutely treated as professionals. You get in the session, you're not allowed to sit by yourself in the lunchroom. You mix in with the pros. And the standards just like that went up, and we've seen them be fantastic so far. So, like, there's really bright things for them, and they will play serious, meaningful minutes for us this year.
And that's the coach. That's down to him, and it's down to where his background is. If someone took a chance on him at 17, now he feels more comfortable taking a chance on somebody else at 17, and also understands this is what worked for me. I needed to act and operate like a professional.
Yep.
So I'm going to tell you to do that, and it's going to be more beneficial for you. And that probably, you see the 17-year-olds acting like that. You know, not that Colin Smith is old, but a 21-year-old, 22-year-old Colin Smith is going to act like that. Patrick Rakowski is going to act like that, and it's trickling up and down from both top to bottom, but bottom to top.
But you just see them have respect for these young kids. They're not treated like young kids. They get yelled at during a session. Paul will stop and kill them in a moment. A player will yell at them, but you see them also giving it back to someone and being demanding in moments. And you see this, like, how this starts to spiral. And then there's a downward spiral effect in a good sense to the rest of the academy. If you've got the 15, 14, 13-year-olds looking up and going, those guys are training every, like, are they going to sign first-team contracts? Like, this is the right place for me. I want to do that. And then all of a sudden it rejuvenates your academy just coming from behind of, like, no, this is real. They're not just up there as training dummies. They're real people. So it's been great, but Paul's mentality towards that is an unbelievable breath of fresh air. He's not a fear-based coach. It is, I'm proactive. I go do the things that I need to do and when I want to do them. And we do them full-throated, and I don't give half effort to it. I just go all in, and I'm excited to see what that gets to, because just in this little area with the academy, it's been unbelievable.
And it's good to see a team, you know, take on the identity of its manager, too. Those are always the best teams, the teams that follow its leader in the way that he wants it to go, and they don't, you know, have resistance to it. They are fully bought in as a collective group going together as one.
You see the importance of a manager who knows what he's about in every essence of his. We had a lot of that with Juan, where it's just like, I've thought about every single piece in this building. I've thought about exactly what I do every single day and how I do it and how I relate to a player. And my communication is specifically for this purpose, and everything is, and you see how everything just marches right in order at that point. You don't have people who stray off to the side because there's nowhere to go, and that person's just going to usher you right back in. So he knows what he's about, and it just makes everything easier in the building for everybody to get on board. And the sessions are really, really good because of it, because the standards are high, and he'll take you right out of a session. You're not here today, go stand over there. It's just everybody is forced. And so you see players taking on his personality in those sessions, because you get knocked down. You do not sit on the ground and roll around. You stand up and go because your team is now down 1. Like, and it's really demanding in that sense. And I think early on we've already seen ourselves adapt to that, where, like, we will not back down to anybody.
Does that leak over to fitness? Obviously, Paul brings in Devin Manifold, and everybody in the preseason wants to know, is the squad fit? Can they go the 90? Are they ready to play football, right? We see Devin, we've seen him carry that iPad around. He is intense. Go, go, go. But then it's always the moments after he stops, and it's a quiet conversation after. Here's how it went. That was good. I'll see you next time. Has that leaked over to those guys as well? Or?
Yeah, it's leaked into every. There is nothing in this building that hasn't. If you're in ticket sales, you're in marketing. Like, it's leaked into every. This is too small a place, and the walls are too thin for it not to leak into everything. And but Devin's been really fantastic. He comes in with really clear ideas and how to execute. He tracks the data. He understands what's required every day, and then he holds firm. He does not back down. And so when the coaches look over and be like, "We want one more 5-minute session," he goes, "No, we're done for the numbers for the day. Come off." Or it's like, "No, we got a little bit left to go. Go ahead and take them. You got this." And like, he holds firm to it. He's really accountable with these guys in the gym as well. We've seen gears from him where he's killed a guy during workout, and you're like, "Boy, I didn't know he had that." And it's like, no, we will hold to our standards in every single thing that we do. And it's not surprising that that's a guy that Pa saw and went, "Hey, that's who we should bring in." He's been fantastic.
How does that affect your job as sporting director? Because you're the sporting director, you set sort of the playing style, wants, the needs, the standards, and he's the head coach. He drills the players in a way that, he takes. I guess what I'm saying is, you want a certain game model. You're going to sign players to a certain game model, but the finer details, they belong to the coaching staff, correct? So what does that change your job in terms of recruiting and bringing in players and identifying talent that works with him while also maintaining what you want to see on the field?
We want to see possession-based attacking soccer. I mean, we've told head coaches in the past, like, we would rather win 4-3 than 1-0. Like, I think people gravitate to goals. They see attempts on goals. They see excitement. I think even here in Phoenix, like, this is where Phoenix basketball worked for a long time with run and gun, right? They just wanted to score. Like, let me see positivity. Let me see real excitement. I don't know why that ties into our culture here, but I know that it does for some reason in Arizona. Like, I think offense just plays better here. And so we want to see a team that is always trying and going for it. And so we really want to get to that now with Pa. And so Pa knows that, and that's Pa's style. And so we went perfect. He's a perfect fit for the alignment here. And then at that point, you can just let him go. There's nothing. I don't have to check in on things. Me and Bobby don't. We just can go watch and just enjoy it. And then we just learn through day-to-day of, all right, here's the conversations with him. Here's how he views this. Here's how he sees these players who are in. Here's how he talks about other players. And then that can just inform us when we let other people know, scouts and others, of, okay, here's what he looks for. Here's how he views this. This is what we've picked up over time. But we don't have to get involved in anything else. It makes it much easier for us to know, again, there's a person who knows exactly what he's about. I've got an answer for this every day. A player is not going to come in and sit with you and talk. They won't come into this building anymore. Like, player needs to talk, he'll come sit in my office, and we'll sort that out real quick. So it's really nice, and it gets back to the way we would like to be, where, like, we're not involved here. Like, we handle the back end things. We're just the backboard for you. Like, you get to shoot.
So what changed then last year? Instead of going for attacking soccer, not that they didn't try to attack, but they were one of, if not the best defense in the entire USL Championship, and it always felt like they just needed to score a few more goals. In the summer window, you bring in 2 wingers and you bring in a striker, and it always felt like the goal was to score more, but that back line was the highlight of a team that just played great defense. They were gritty, they were hard-nosed, but the goals just never fell. What changed last year for the entire philosophy?
I really don't know. And last year's one, I've thought about it a million times, and it was just kind of a false start. And I think if you lose a manager who, similar to Paul, like, again, everything in the building was Juan's to an extent of, this is how I want it, and we helped create that. Like, okay, when he leaves January 2nd, the guys show up 13 days later. That's a big, big vacuum in the building. And, you've brought in specific people to Juan's game model and how he views it, and especially guys that he knew of, this is exactly what I can get out of them. Like, when that leaves, it's very difficult to recreate that. So I just think we never got going. And you can have good attackers, you can have things, but you can create goals by lots of different things. And we just never really got into that groove where I think people felt positive and going. It was just a little bit of a depleted atmosphere all year. And so we just, defensively, whether we were just more defensively minded maybe, or our possession-based style just led to lower scoring games. It was easier for us to defend because of it, possibly. I really don't. We had fantastic defenders last year as well. So it was just a really, really tough year in a lot of ways. And it was hard to look back on because it was like, all right, there's so many things that didn't go right. And you take blame for certain things and you look at other things like, all right, what was in our control, what was out of our control. But the lack of goals was obviously the thing that just kept us all up at night.
And going back to that summer window, we obviously talked about it before. Gerald, DJ, Tomas, 2 wingers and a striker, but Gerrard, to me, was the impact addition of that summer. DJ, fantastic. When you put them on other sides of the wing and they were attacking across over the top, it was beautiful soccer, right? What are you seeing from Saba FK? Obviously, Gerrard comes from. I had to Google. Where is this guy coming from? Everybody had to
Brandon
Google.
had to Google it.
You pick up the Curaçao's best player, likely. He goes out over the summer, over the winter. He scored 5 goals or 4 goals against St. Martin. That was my guy on broadcast. I loved Gerrard. What are you seeing when it comes to acquiring a player like that? What do the numbers look like? What are you looking at? Is it tape? Is it data? Is it both? Or
it's everything. You can't have a good process with it just being one thing. I don't think it has to be a holistic approach. And I give full credit to both of them. They were guys that came from our outside. They were both originally flagged by our data guy who said, hey, this is worth looking. He sent them to our scout who he watched and was really like, okay, this is serious. And then he's just knocking at my door every day. Like, have you watched Margarita yet? Have you watched Margarita yet? And it's like, you're dealing with other stuff. And finally it was like this fifth Mathers. I was like, all right, let's put on Margarita and see what this is. And then same with DJ, who they were actually happening all within the same week or two. And both were like, Jesus, these are real. So at that point you take them to the coaches and say, let's take a watch here. And they both, okay, can we get both of these guys? If not, who's the one we choose? How does this work? And then we realize, okay, I think both are possible. And they quite literally signed within an hour of each other. They came here like it was this really like smooth process getting there. But full credit, it was the guys on the back end who saw it and went, no, guys, this is who we need to be paying attention to. Are these possible? And so that's ultimately how we want the process to work, where it's other people who are really good at their jobs pointing their fingers and going, this is it. This is where you got to be.
So where does the data-driven mentality come from? Where does that start in your mind and in the club's mind as a whole?
Obviously, that's something coming from baseball where I saw the entire game go that way, but you also saw the benefits of it is there's an extra, the extra 1%, the extra 2%. Like, where do you find pieces that other people aren't finding? And so we would never have found out. We weren't following Saba FK. We wouldn't know Gerrard Margarita existed. It just wouldn't. Like, unless you happen to be watching a game in the second division of Netherlands the year before and saw him ripping it up, you just wouldn't know. So you've got to have a way to see the world more holistically. We see the USL well. Again, like, you can kind of see Next Pro, you can kind of see League One, but there's just a lot out there to consume. How do you shrink this and make it something that you can see a little bit better? And so we have more initiatives coming to just see more of the world again, but data is where that had to come from. And we can do a little bit with match prep, match breakdown. It's always based on what the manager wants out of it. But with recruitment, it can just shrink the world that little bit that possibly makes a difference.
Any info on the new initiatives that you have coming for that, or?
We've obviously done the data thing. We're expanding, but there's a point at our level where you can maybe get to where there's diminishing returns, where if you're at a much bigger club, you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on a data operation, and there's return on that because the players are making enough money that you're always trying to find bigger, better players. But here we wanted to get a bigger eye on scouting. We've had one full-time scout for a while who does fantastic work, and started to realize that he can only see what he can see. And so ultimately we're going to commit to, we're bringing in a new director of recruitment who will come in, who came back as he was the sporting director at Dynamo Bucharest. And we're now going to launch a national initiative of trying to create the largest scouting department anywhere in the country. He's now run this. He ran it at Dynamo Bucharest. It was a volunteer-based program that is in its essence, it's an educational program. It's a year-long educational program that he teaches. He's taught scouts at the Romanian FA. He taught them at different clubs. And we want to teach for a year while they also scout and really learn how to scout, learn how to take a football passion into a possible career and an opportunity. And just like we said with anybody else in the building, we want people here in this program to work here full time, to move into real jobs in football, and then move beyond us. And then other people find other jobs outside. Like, we want to create a career pathway for people that it doesn't exist. People are always looking for, how do I get into sports? How do I get into sports? How do I get in? And a lot of times they have to go into ticketing, they have to go into marketing. They just try and find these adjunct jobs of, how do you actually get into the sport of the sport? And so I want to create that pathway for people to be able to do it. And that should be announcing pretty soon and get up and running. And I think it's a cool opportunity for a lot of people. And it also will help us get a better look at everything around the world.
So you're bringing a guy in to run a department, or run the recruitment department, that is going to become a global search where it's just, if you want to learn, I know what I'm doing. I will give you a year's worth of education, 6 months worth of education. if you go out and scout in your area in your neck of the woods, and we'll see what we can come up with, essentially? Or is it a little more?
It's all domestic based. We want it to all be U.S. based. Like, you want a closer tie to it. You want to be able to, when we go to Pittsburgh, there's a scout that's based in Pittsburgh who just, hey, come out, meet the team, like shake hands with the coaches. We can all meet in person. But that person will essentially recruit other places around the world. They'll watch things. So some people, you all get based different leagues around the world.
So Jimmy in New York could be tasked with watching Armenia.
He might be watching Saba FK and going, hey, guys,
Joe Margarita's
I noticed there's this guy here. And eventually we just watch more and more while these guys are learning and learning and learning. We want this big kind of diverse program with people with different backgrounds. That's what he did in Romania, and he's got some really cool stories of people a woman who was a farmer who is now a full-time scout into the West Ham. There's just a lot of these cool stories of people policemen with extra time in their day, and like, I just love football, I want to do this. We know these stories exist all over the U.S. Let's find these people who have a passion, and we can teach them for a year. Here's how you learn to scout. Here's how you do scout. And then ultimately, you might have a chance to just be a real scout out of this.
Sounds good to me.
Kevin's going to sign up.
We've got people around the building here who went, this is really cool. Like, I want to do this. We've got Bill Krause, our team governor, goes, can I do this? And you're like, absolutely, you can. Like, we can have a good process where we hope thousands of applications come in, and you find the best 80 to 100 and go, okay, these are the people who are most passionate, that have time to dedicate to this, that will see this through to the end. We get something out of it, but the hope, and more importantly, is that they really get something out of it, that either it just scratches an itch for a passion or it just creates a career for them.
How does it become mutually beneficial, though? Because obviously there could be, as you pointed out, a lot of benefit to the individual of saying, I'm going to potentially find a new hobby, a new passion, a new career. How does it become mutually beneficial for the club, though?
We just get eyes on people that we don't know exist. That's really the essence, is if over time someone's been watching, again, Armenia, Azerbaijan, watching these different leagues for a year, and they flag up someone of, let's get eyes on this guy. Okay, then we've got a lot of people we can watch, and everybody can file reports, and we go, okay, I think these players are real. And then when we get to that time when it comes time to make a team, when Paul comes to you and says, listen, I need this position, here's the KPIs I need, it's very easy to then, okay, if we have our own database, we can look and go, hey, here are the people who fit. All right, how does data cross with them? How does this all look? And then you have them watch and go, what do you think of these players? And that's ultimately how you're signing players now. But how do we do this with a much larger look at the rest of the world?
What's a KPI?
Like the key performance indicators for any player. So you can have that at any position, where if you want a left-sided center back, okay, he's got to be left-footed. He's got to be able to do this. And we play a possession model, so you have to have center back who play with their feet. You can't just have people who just kick it and run. And so you're always trying to find the little pieces at each position that the manager wants. And so you find that in terms of data and scouting of, here's the 8 things that are non-negotiable at this position they have to be able to do. And eventually, if there's things in there they don't do, that player's not a fit for the manager system.
So you're taking, so let's say for a holding midfielder, let's say you're trying to look for a holding midfielder. What are you guys looking for in a holding midfielder? And then how does that get inputted into the data search so you can find maybe 15 guys that fit that, and then you go watch those guys? How does that work?
You just use it like with wingers. Like, okay, there's wingers that will play different ways. Like, but in our system, we need wingers who are taking people on 1v1. You're going to absolutely look at someone and go, I'm coming at you, and I'm going to come at you over and over and over. So you look at a Jeremy Doku with Manchester City, like those kind of guys. So you put in, all right, can they do 1v1? What's their 1v1 dribble percentage? How often do they dribble? And then you look at other pieces. They get to goal. Like, you try to find these different 5 to 6 pieces in their game that do they fit what the manager wants? Because if they don't, then there's no point in giving it to the manager, because he's going to look within 3 clips and go, that's not what I'm looking for. So whether you're putting that into a data system, whether you're putting that into a scouting system, you have to know that at the end point is going to be what the manager's looking for. And ultimately, it'll still come down to his matter of taste and preference, but you want to be showing him 5 guys that already fit what he's looking for, as opposed to 5 guys who are all over the joint and only one of them looks like the player he needs.
Yeah. So maybe a little exercise, because to me, the most intriguing signing of the offseason was Isan Sako. Comes, has over 50 League One appearances, plays for Strasbourg, only 27 years old, not a 33-year-old, washed out of League One, played his way through. This is a guy hitting his physical prime. What KPIs did he hit as a 9 coming from France? Vast professional experiences. What did you guys see in Sako that brought him to Phoenix Rising?
He's just a really good player. That's what that based down to. Similar kind of like Data really liked him. Little pieces in his career were always good. He's scored a good amount, but then He had kind of fallen to a level. He admits it, like he made one bad move, similar to what I was talking about earlier. Like guys can make the wrong step, and he made a move to Italy where it just kind of threw everything a little bit off track. He's been finding his feet again in Switzerland, and that opportunity came to us, and everybody, originally the outside scouts, were like, this is really good. You bring it to the coaches and go, what do you think here? And everybody, Pa was like, that's a good player. This is, and so you're always balancing him and others with 3 to 4 other guys in that position, and then you find the best opportunity for Phoenix Rising, and then Isan was he was a really good fit as a person, and you realize this is a guy that needs a new horizon, a new place to get used to, a new place to come find, and we felt like we had the right atmosphere for him.
And on the flip side of the 9 coin, Remy Cabral, right? Last year went through so much to get to this point. We saw him play against PC, we saw him play against St. Louis, and he just looks different.
He scored 7 goals in 90 minutes of play with the assists.
So fast, so quick on the ball. He looks lean, but not too thin. He's strong enough to battle in the box. He's going to go out there and fight. How has it been watching his progression as a player? Because it's been a 12-month stretch for him.
It's really been good, and we're really happy when Paul came in that he's like, I'd like to have Remy back, because we didn't know where a manager would fit on that. Like, Remy is just one of the most genuinely nice, wonderful people to have around the building. Those are the guys that you want to have in your locker room every day. People just congeal to him and really enjoy him. We knew last year for him was a little bit of a false start with some injuries. I think that just he wasn't ever in the shape that he wanted to be in. It was just kind of a little bit off. And again, we didn't create enough and we didn't score enough goals. He still scored 7 goals, and he probably had 4 more that were ruled out for offside that were just bad calls. There's a real player in there that we know there was more there. And so, again, with Pa's mindset of, like, I can get more out of this. This is a fit. This is a fit with this group. And so you felt really good about bringing him back, where obviously the Rapids had let him go. Like, all right, take this step one more time here, and then really springboard yourself back to where you want to be.
So you guys wanted to bring Remy back after he was let go. The scouting department, the recruiting department, the staff behind the scenes, and then Pa comes in and seconds that?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I guess, seconds it, or just like, all right, take a look. You know, he watched us play in New Mexico last year. He's kind of doing a dual role at the back end of the season, and watched and goes, no, that's a guy. Like, I really like that guy. He didn't play against New Mexico, but he had seen Remy and knew him well, and when I like him, and how is he as a person? And then you're filling him in. He's talking to the rest of the coaches. What are his training habits? What's he like? And he learns about each individual player and then makes his decision on who he thinks should come back, who he thinks this might not be a fit for me. And Remy just kind of ticked all those boxes and was like, all right, if this fits our build, I think this is the guy that we should bring back. And it was a wholehearted agreement.
I noticed, and obviously everybody did, that it was a good group of guys that returned from last year's team. How involved was Pa in saying, well, you didn't maybe get the most out of Remy Cabral again or another player in the team, or Patrick Rakowski, let's say, but I want that guy back after talking with all the people I've talked to. He was obviously super involved in that, but like, what's his mindset there?
Yeah, he's looking for guys that fit his, again, you can't be half-assed. You can't blame other people. You have to be able to compete in these sessions that we have right now. And, okay, who has that mentality? And then, again, similar to like how he views KPIs or whatever you call them, does this guy fit a role in my system? You saw Charlie play on the wing in Oakland. Like, Charlie's a winger with us now, and it's like, no, I don't see a midfielder there. I see an inverted winger. And you go, okay, that's how he views football, which is different than coming in. You go, oh, yeah, I wouldn't have seen that. But that's okay. That's what fits my system. And there's other guys where it's like, okay, I don't think that's a fit for the way that we play. This probably isn't the best guy to bring back. It's not the right move for him or us. Okay, so we move on there. But the rest he can look at, and JP is a perfect fit for the way that we play. This makes sense. And so some of them either need a new contract, some of them are already coming back. Whatever it is, but he goes through with a fine-tooth comb of everybody with him and Vic and the rest of the coaching staff and goes, these are the fits for us. Let's re-sign these guys. Let's move here. If not, here are the positions that we need to go find others at. And then, again, there's some guys that he came in the building with where he went, I want this guy I've had before. And you go, okay, great.
Sure.
To me, I think my last real roster question is Ryan Flood. Arizona boy, I think this is now his 3rd stint with the club after going out on loan. What plays into the decision to bring him back, and what do we think that we can get out of him this year that we haven't seen before?
Ryan just keeps coming, and when he went to Ireland a couple years ago, like I don't think he was quite ready as a footballer, as a person. Like he was kind of in this middle ground, and I think Ireland was a wonderful, wonderful thing for him. He comes back, and it's a full-hearted person now that you see. Like I don't know, he feels like a man that came back. It just wasn't quite a fit last year. We just didn't have the need, and so that's why we put him out on loan last year. But coming back this year, he was one that Paul was like, I need to get more of a look, and really watched a lot of his stuff at OC. Is like, I think there's value in this guy. I think this guy can really fit for us with Emmy at left back. I think we need to bring this guy in and see. And it was perfect because his attitude and training every day, his intensity, and also what he can do physically is wonderful. And then it gives a great fight between two guys that everybody likes at a position. And then you have that internal competition like we have at all other positions. And Ryan's been fantastic there.
There's another guy who can play on the wing, like we were talking about earlier. He scored a bunch of goals in Ireland.
14.
Ireland. As a midfielder, he was all over the place.
Sure.
Like, he can do a lot of things, and he's got a left foot that belongs 6 levels higher. He can hit strike a ball like it's like a hooded 4-iron. He's unbelievable the way he can hit one. So it's he's fun to watch every day, and it's great. Again, it's a development atmosphere. Like, I don't need a finished product here. Give me someone I can work with and develop and has the mindset for it, and we can get more out of them.
So I guess, I have one more question after this one, but you look at the way the roster has been constructed to this point. We're talking on Tuesday, February 25th. That's, math is hard, like 11 days out from the opener?
Sounds right.
11, 12, I don't know.
Not a leap year.
Yeah, exactly. You look at that. Is there one spot in the roster as of right now that you think we could use one more guy there? We could use one more depth piece or starter in this position, or are you pretty confident where you have it?
No, we're fairly settled. With Casey in, that was the only part we were waiting on opportunities at center back.
Another left footer behind Mo.
We needed a left footer behind Mo, and you're just kind of waiting through you're going through different people. Paul had talked about Casey. He had seen him there, and as we really watched him, like, he had really gotten stagnant in San Jose, and it was, hey, are you willing to come in and trial? And same with Alex Arenado. Like, Paul had familiarity with him in North Texas. Everything had gone a little askew the last year, and he's like, let's just bring these guys in for trial and see what we have. Yes, and they weren't guys that you were going to sign sight unseen, but both came in, were really impressive. They were good people. They were leaders in their way, and it was like, okay, these are good fits to the group that you've got. You've got Braxton in the academy. Like, you've got depth in that position now. They're not sexy signs that people recognize, but they're players that can really go far and do a lot of things. And now we've seen them up close and personal in our training environment. We've seen them survive. The players around them aren't going, this guy doesn't fit. They've moved in seamlessly, and you feel really good about them. So there's always opportunities that can come up, and we'll keep looking and evaluating, but we really like where we're at right now.
So you mentioned it a little bit ago with all the stuff that you learned from talking to Pa, and you learned to talking to all these coaches. We've spent a lot of time, and we appreciate it, on this year's team and talking about other people. For you specifically, you've been, since you've gotten here, 5 or 6 different managers, and getting to see that, getting to learn and pick apart different managers who see things differently. How has that been for you to, as a football fan that wants to learn as much about the game as you possibly can? What's that been like for you?
It's been that's the fun thing. And so I like going to sit in the coach's room while they talk. I don't want to I'm not asserting myself. I just want to hear them talk through their training session and why you do this and why do you set this up and why is this player a neutral? What's the training? Why is the pitch organized this way for this session? What are you trying to get out of this? And there's a reason for all the chaos when you're out there watching. It's a specific purpose for everything. I want to learn that. How does that transform, or how does that matter to your game model? And then why does your game model think this way as opposed to, okay, that's different than how Juan saw it, or Danny, or how Rick? Like, there's these little subtle differences in all these systems, and here's the why, and here's how I view it. And that's the fun thing, is getting to learn a whole new person again and understand how that works. And then professionally, all right, what do you take from that? And you just need a lot of ideas that comes together. It's my favorite thing about football, is the whole world is involved. So we've got a Gambian Norwegian manager who comes in and sees the game this way. It's different than an American Venezuelan manager. It's different than Rick. It's different than all these people that look at the game their way and understand how they see it through different eyes. And that all, like anybody in football, just leads to hopefully 10, 15 years later, you've got this huge diverse bank set of ideas, and you go, okay, here's how I see it. That is what it is. And then you just keep learning and learning and learning.
What Brandon's telling is, I think Brandon's going to start coaching youth soccer teams and just start throwing Pamadou Ka and Danny Stone and Juan Guerrero references.
The U10s are not ready. They're not ready.
This is,
start
you're still
yelling
so
at a
young.
9-year-old about the half space.
Everything is new, and everything's the best you've ever seen. So Juan playing with pocket 10s, you go, okay, yeah, you should play with wing backs and pocket 10s, and wingers you don't need. And then you see another, and you're like, no, wingers are good. There's a little bit of this, you learn and adjust, and that's why you need managers who are committed to their vision and understand why they see it, and they're wholehearted, and they're like, I believe in this, and get it. Because if I went out and coached, it'd be like, okay, I don't actually know what I functionally believe in to coach a team, and I would in no way ever try it.
All right, we've started to end each and every episode with what we're calling now Kevin's favorite question. And it's different for every person, but Kevin does have a question he's been dying to ask you this entire time.
It's true. This was what I had teed up. I asked Colin about his shoes. We asked Pat about pretty much everything. We asked Pa about pretty much everything. Did you get a ring from the White Sox in 2005?
Yeah, of course.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That's all. I just wanted to know if you had it. Wikipedia says that, because you never know. Teams are sometimes, especially that's 2005.
Yeah.
Certain teams wouldn't give rings to players who didn't make the postseason roster. And so I know, for me, I had a neighbor who was the bullpen coach for the 2012 Giants.
Yep.
And he got his ring years after because they were like, sorry, we didn't give it to you. Here it is now. And
Really?
it was just cool. So
Usually any player who even plays a day
Gets
will
one?
get, and most everybody in the clubs will generally get one, but I know certainly all players do. And then we did the same here with our rings for the team last year. Went to that. Like, if you were here for a minute, like, you're getting a ring for this.
So all those academy kids that got on like a random day, or is that different? Doesn't have
I
to be.
believe so. I can't remember if Joel and FA did. I think we did, but I could be mistaken. I'd have to go back and look at that. Like,
Interesting.
there was the rings thing was an ordeal because it's just, you're all of a sudden like, we're not a ring ordering service. How do we organize 200 rings to get purchased for everybody that's involved with the club? But you try to do right by everybody.
That's heritage, by the way, Kevin. Joel Torbick mentioned on the pod.
Yeah.
That's heritage. All right, Brandon McCarthy, thank you for taking the time with us. That was almost an hour long, so plenty for everybody to go out there and listen to. And we'll see you in 2 weeks for the next one, guys.